In this video I'm going to talk about how we test our Ansible playbook changes at the Adoptium project using a tool that we have called VagrantPlaybookCheck. Now this is something that we've written ourselves and it runs as a Jenkins job normally. So you can see in our Jenkins instance here we've got the job called VagrantPlaybookCheck. We have another similar one called QEMU playbookcheck, which does a similar operation but for other architectures, and again they're hosted on one big x86 system that we have that runs multiple virtual machines. Vagrant, for those who don't know, is an automation around various different virtual machine technologies. In the case of the server that we have set up, it's a fairly beefy machine. I think it's 8 cores, 32 gigabytes of RAM, so it can run multiple virtual machines in parallel. And what we do is we use it to start up a virtual machine with a completely clean operating system as far as possible, and then we fire the playbook at it, the infrastructure playbooks for the project, and then once that's complete it will run a build of the JDK, and then it will run a couple of very small tests just to verify that all the correct prerequisites for being able to run a build and to be able to run the test suite is installed on a machine. And so as far as possible we try to run this against every PR that changes the playbooks, and keep an eye on it and make sure that it doesn't cause any problems when deployed onto a clean system. You can see from the configurations here that we have quite a lot of different operating systems that are available. Normally we would run it on the vast majority of them. It's up to the user who's running it which one. I mean, obviously if the user knows that they haven't touched the Windows playbook, there's not a great deal of point in selecting the Windows one. But normally it's quite good to be able to test on the different distributions if you're modifying something that will affect Linux. So we have various distributions and we change these over time. We should probably add Ubuntu 22 into there now. That's an LTS version, probably replacing 2104, which was a short-term support one. So I've just created a PR here into the infrastructure repository, and it removes the GCC 7 package, and I want to make sure that there's nothing that depends on that, so that it is safe to remove it. So I'm going to test this particular branch that I have of the infrastructure repository using VagrantPlaybookCheck. So build with parameters. There isn't anything too complex in here. Now the fork is basically my GitHub user ID, so it's in github.com/sxe, and it's my branch of that, and the branch is this one, which is obviously the one included in the pull request. In terms of the test that it does to build the OpenJDK, we can specify an alternate repository for the build scripts if we want to. So if we're making changes to build scripts, we can also test changes simultaneously. If you have a build change that requires an infrastructure change, that's quite useful, so you can test them both in parallel. But normally you just leave those as they were. That's the Adoptium build scripts. And that lets you, if you want to not run the build or the test component of it, obviously there's not much point in running the tests without the build. So yeah, you usually have all of those enabled. I'm going to select the JDK 8 just because that's a slightly quicker one. We can also build OpenJ9. That has a few more prerequisites on it, so it will test a little bit more of the playbooks if you want to do that. There's fast mode as well, which will skip some of the things that take quite a long time to install but aren't always required. So for example, we put multiple versions of Visual Studio on the Windows boxes. If you enable fast mode, it will only do the ones that you need for the JDK that you build, and so on. And down the bottom you can select which of the operating systems you want to do. In the case of this one, I know it hasn't touched Win 2012, it's not going to touch Solaris either because I'm literally removing the GCC 7 package from the different Unix playbooks, or the Linux parts of the playbooks. So I'm just going to leave all of those on. It won't be able to run all of them in parallel. It will run, I think we've got 5 executors on our machine that we use for Vagrant. Verbosity, similar to what you can do with the AWX server, you can add in extra -v's if you want more detailed output to debug it if things go wrong. So I'm now going to and yep, the other thing there is you can retain the virtual machine, so if you're having a particular problem and you want to actually go onto the server and debug it, you can do that by leaving the virtual machine running. Normally it will shut it down to save resources. So that's all you need to fill in. So the important things are the fork that you your pull request is from, and the list of operating systems that you want to test on as well. And then you click build and it will go away and start doing that. So if you were to go into the console log for these, you would then see it running through all the operations for the playbooks, and then you would see it running through the build process for the project, and then running one of the small tests. We have a specific set of tests that we use because we know they're ones that use extra prerequisites that, if they're missing, will cause some problems. So there you go. You can see it's chosen to start with a subset of them. We've got 5 of them running at the moment. So yeah, as I said, it's 5 executors that we have: Debian 10, CentOS 6, CentOS 8, Ubuntu 18.04, and by the look of it, Ubuntu 21.04, and it will get through the other ones once those are complete. Thanks for listening.